I'm Lara, and life kinda threw me a curveball, but let's not jump ahead. Starting from the top, my folks ran this chain of repair shops. Dad was the brains, and Mom was the charm. When Dad passed, it was like the backbone of our family went with him. Mom decided to sell off the business, saying it was time to cash in and live a little. Can't blame her, really. She kept the big house, some cash for her golden years, and then dropped a bomb on me and Ava, my sister. We were each getting a cool $100,000. Ava, she's always been the wild one, eyes bigger than her stomach, dreams bigger than her wallet. Me? I was planning to stash half of that cash away, maybe start a small business, and have a decent wedding with Mark. Mark and I have been an item since college, the steady rock to my sometimes crazy waves. Then there was this one night, dinner at Mom's, the big house feeling emptier without Dad. That's when Ava, out of the blue, pitches this idea of going into business together. Lara, think about it, we could be unbeatable, Ava said, her eyes sparkling with that usual mix of excitement and madness. I shook my head, pushing my peas around the plate. Ava, you know I've got plans with Mark. We've talked about this. Mark, sitting beside me, nudged my arm. Babe, maybe it's not a bad idea. Ava's got a point. You two together could really make something happen. And she's your sister, she won't screw you over. Ava jumped in, seeing Mark's support as a green light. Exactly. Come on, Lara. It's now or never. We can make our old man proud, start something he'd wish he did. I looked between them, feeling like I was being cornered. But it was that look in Ava's eyes, damn it, that made me cave. It reminded me of when we were kids, plotting some mischief. Alright, but we do this by the book. No funny business, Ava. Scout's honor. She laughed, clearly never a scout in her life. A few days later, Ava comes around with these papers, all official looking, talking about some investment fund I'd never heard of. She's all giddy, saying we're about to hit the jackpot with the interest this fund's gonna pay out. Hold up, what? I thought we were talking about a physical business. A cafe or something, I said, flipping through the documents, not understanding half of it. Change of plans, Lara. This is way better. Trust me, we're gonna be rolling in it, Ava assured, her excitement not quite infectious this time. I felt my stomach twist. Ava, this isn't what we agreed on. I didn't say yes to gambling our money away on some fund. We don't even know who's behind it. Ava waved off my concerns like swatting a fly. Chill, sis. It's all legit. You'll thank me when we're sipping mojitos on our private beach. The days after Ava's bombshell about the investment were a blur. I felt like I was walking through a fog, each step heavier than the last. The shock of her unilateral decision to throw our money into some shady fund was slowly morphing into a cold, hard anger. I cornered her one evening at Mom's place, where we'd often meet up for dinner. The house still had that cozy, lived-in feel, but Dad's absence hung over us like a silent specter. Ava, we need to talk about this fun thing, I said, my voice steady but with an edge sharp enough to cut. What were you thinking? Ava rolled her eyes, her defense already up. Oh, come on, Lara. Don't start with me. It's done, okay? We're going to make bank. Just relax. Relax? I shot back, my calm facade cracking. You took our money, my money, and dumped it into something I didn't agree to. How am I supposed to just relax? Mark tried to step in, always the peacemaker. Ladies, maybe we should just sit down and talk this through. Stay out of this, Mark. I snapped, my frustration boiling over. This was between me and Ava, and I wasn't about to let him soften the blow. Ava leaned back, her arms crossed. Look, Lara, it's done. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. But you're blowing this way out of proportion. It's an investment, not the end of the world. I could feel the vein in my forehead throbbing. Not the end of the world? That was my wedding money, Ava. Our father's legacy. And you gambled it away like it was nothing. It's not gambling if it's a sure thing, she countered, but even she didn't seem convinced by her own words. Mom walked in then, sensing the tension. What's all this yelling about? Ava and I turned to her, our battle lines drawn. I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice level, but the betrayal I felt was hard to mask. Mom listened, her expression growing more troubled with each word. When I finished, she sighed, a deep, weary sound. Ava, is this true? Ava shrugged, a defensive smirk playing on her lips. Yeah, so what? It's going to pay off, you'll see. Mom turned to me, her eyes soft with sympathy. Lara, honey, I know you're upset, but let's not make a bigger mess. No police, please. We're a family. We can sort this out. I felt like screaming, running, anything to break free from the insanity of the situation. But looking at Mom, seeing the plea in her eyes, I deflated. Fine, Mom. For you. But this? This isn't over. The ride home with Mark was silent, a thick, uncomfortable silence. He finally spoke up as we neared our apartment. Lara, maybe it's not as bad as it seems. Ava's made mistakes, sure, but she's your sister. I turned to him, my heart heavy. Mark, she didn't just make a mistake. She betrayed me. And for what? A quick buck? He reached over, taking my hand. We'll figure this out, Lara. Together. Okay? His words were meant to comfort, but they felt hollow. The air felt heavy, like before a storm, when Ava dropped the next bombshell that turned my world upside down, again. It was at one of our family dinners, supposed to be a regular thing, but nothing felt regular anymore. Ava waltzed in hand with Mark, my Mark. My jaw must have hit the floor because the room went silent, the kind of silence that screams. Guess what, everyone? Ava announced, her voice too cheery. Mark and I are getting married. I blinked, thinking maybe I misheard, that this was some twisted joke. But no, there they were, grinning like two cats who'd got the cream. Married? I finally managed, my voice a mix of shock and disbelief. Mark, what is this? Mark wouldn't meet my eyes, his usual steady gaze darting around the room. Lara, it's complicated. I'm sorry, I didn't know how to. Complicated? I interrupted, feeling the anger boiling up from my toes. You call this complicated? Mom tried to step in, always the peacemaker. Let's all just calm down and talk this through. Talk this through? I snapped, all my hurt spilling out. How do you talk through betrayal? Ava had the gall to look offended. Betrayal? Really, Lara? I thought you'd be happy for us. Happy? That word felt foreign, bitter on my tongue. You steal my fiance, my future, and you want me to be happy? Mark finally spoke up, his voice low. Lara, it wasn't like that. Things just happened. Just happened? I echoed, my heart in pieces. And what, Ava? Was this your plan all along? Use my money, then take my man? Ava's eyes flashed, defensive. It's not about the money, Lara. Mark and I, we have something real. Something real, I repeated, the words tasting like ash. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I had to get out. I stormed out, leaving the chaos behind. The cold night didn't touch the burning rage and hurt inside me. In the following days, silence took over my apartment. Mark's things disappeared, and with them, the life I thought we'd have together. They moved away, but the pain stayed, a constant reminder of the double cross. Mom saw how broken I was and finally had a heart-to-heart with me. She was always the kind to look for peace, but even she had her limits. Lara, darling, I know it's hard. But holding on to this anger, it'll only hurt you more, she said softly, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. I just stared, too hurt to consider forgiveness. Then she dropped another bombshell, one I didn't see coming. I've decided to disinherit Ava. After all this, I can't. I'm leaving everything to you, the house, my savings. Everything. Ava and Mark, they'd chosen their path, and Mom had chosen hers, standing by me. It didn't make the betrayal any less painful, but it was a reminder that not everything was lost. I still had Mom, and in that moment, it was enough to start picking up the pieces. After the dust settled with Ava and Mark's betrayal, life felt like a series of motions, without emotion. But, as they say, time also heals, or at least it scabs over the wounds enough so you can start to move on. I threw myself into work, into renovating the big house Mom left me. It was during one of those long days, covered in paint and sawdust, that I met Ethan. He was a friend of a friend, showed up offering to help with some heavy lifting. I must have looked a mess, but Ethan, he just had this easy smile that made you want to smile back, even if you'd sworn off happiness. "Need a hand with that?" he asked, nodding towards a bulky piece of furniture I was eyeing like an enemy. "I've got it," I said, stubborn as ever, but he just chuckled and stepped in anyway. "Sure you do. And I'm the Queen of England," he joked, and despite myself, I laughed. It had been so long since I'd genuinely found something funny. Ethan was different. He wasn't trying to fix me, just there, making me laugh, lending a hand, and somehow, day by day, the house and my heart started to feel a bit lighter. We'd take breaks, sitting on the porch, drinking lemonade, and talking about everything and nothing. It was easy, uncomplicated, and slowly, I found myself looking forward to those moments. "You know," Ethan said one day, "I never thought I'd enjoy getting covered in paint this much." I glanced at him, splattered in various shades from our latest project. "Well, you're in good company. I think I have more paint on me than the walls." One evening, as we were watching the sunset, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan turned to me, his expression serious for once. "Lara," he started, and I felt a catch in my breath. "I know we've been, casual friends. But I was wondering if maybe you'd like to, I don't know, see where this goes?" My heart, which I thought was locked up tight, suddenly felt like it might beat right out of my chest. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the kindness, the warmth. And I realized, I did want to see where this could go. "Yeah, Ethan, I'd like that," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it was enough. Recovery, I learned, wasn't just about moving past the pain, it was about being open to new beginnings, even when you're terrified. Ethan taught me that. He showed me that it's okay to trust again, to love, even when your past tries to convince you otherwise. Mom's passing was a blow, another wave of grief, but this time I wasn't alone. Ethan was there, his support unwavering, as we navigated the loss together. The house, once a reminder of everything I'd lost, became a home filled with love and laughter, promises of a future I hadn't dared to imagine. I was sipping my morning coffee, Ethan reading the paper across the table, when I saw it. An email from a name I didn't recognize, subject line reading, "Investment opportunity awaits." Curiosity piqued, I clicked it open. The email was slick, filled with fancy terms and promising a hefty return on an investment I'd supposedly made 5 years ago. $390,000, it claimed, was sitting there waiting for me. All I had to do was claim it, or better yet, reinvest with them for an even bigger payout. My heart raced, thoughts of Ava and that disastrous investment flooding back. "Ethan," I said, my voice a mix of excitement and anxiety, "you've got to see this." He peered over, his brow furrowing as he read. "This looks odd. Do you remember investing in something like this?" Shaking my head, I replied, "It's got to be that thing Ava dragged me into. But we never heard anything back. I thought the money was gone for good." Ethan's face was a study in skepticism. "I don't know, Lara. This smells fishy. Have you heard from Ava?" "Not a word," I said, the mere mention of her name souring my mood. After everything, I doubt she'd be the one reaching out, especially like this. Ethan stood, pacing the kitchen. "We should be careful. This could be a scam. You said you never got any paperwork or saw any returns, right?" "Right," I confirmed, the initial excitement waning under his logical scrutiny. "What do you suggest?" Let me do some digging, Ethan proposed, always the problem solver. I've got a buddy who works in finance, he can look into this company, see if they're legit. Ethan spent the next few days on the phone, sending emails, and meeting with his finance friend. I tried not to hover, but the waiting was agony. Finally, he came home with news. So, my friend did some digging. This company? Barely exists on paper. And the investment fund? No record of it actually making any payouts. It's a ghost, Laura, Ethan explained, a hint of anger in his tone. I felt a mix of disappointment and relief. So, it's a scam. Looks like it. But there's something else, Ethan added, hesitating. My friend said these types of scams usually target people based on specific info. They knew exactly how to bait you, Laura. It's possible someone gave them your name, someone who knew about the investment. The implication hung in the air, heavy and unsaid. Ava. But why? And why now? I pondered, the question swirling in my mind. And then I realized everything. She found out about my savings, inherited from our mother. The weeks after Ethan decided to bring in a private detective were the longest of my life. Every day was like sitting on a bed of nails, waiting for any news that could explain the bizarre email and maybe shine a light on what Ava and Mark were up to. When we finally got the call to come in and discuss the findings, my stomach was in knots. The detective's office was one of those nondescript places, blending into the cityscape, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. Ethan squeezed my hand as we sat down across from the detective, a guy named Dan who looked like he'd seen it all twice over and then some. He had this calm way about him, but his eyes missed nothing. So, Dan started, flipping open a folder. Your sister and her husband have been busy. I braced myself, expecting bad news, but not ready for the depth of it. They've been moving from state to state, leaving a trail of fraud scandals behind them. It's quite the rap sheet, Dan continued, his voice steady. My heart sank. Ava, involved in fraud? It was hard to wrap my head around. And Mark? The guy I thought I knew? It felt like a punch to the gut. Dan didn't pause, laying out the rest like cards on the table. Right now, they're here, in your city. Your sister is posing as the owner of a large investment fund, drawing people in to invest in big projects. Ethan's grip on my hand tightened. But it's all a front? He asked, his voice hard. Exactly, Dan confirmed. She rented an office in a high-end business center, but it's all for show. Plans to collect as much as she can and then skip the country. They've already got visas and plane tickets. The room spun a little. Ava and Mark, planning to scam people out of their hard-earned money and then just flee? How could they have sunk so low? Ethan was the first to break the silence. Can we stop them? There's got to be a way to prevent this. Dan nodded, his expression serious. It's possible, but we'll need to act fast. Gather more evidence, maybe catch them in the act. It's risky, but it might be the only way to bring them down. I felt a mix of fear and determination. Ava was my sister, but the person Dan described? That was a stranger to me. And Mark? He was as good as a stranger now, too. We'll do it, I said, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice. Whatever it takes. We can't let them hurt anyone else. D-Day felt like jumping off a cliff with nothing but hope that the water below wasn't too shallow. Ethan and I had laid all our cards on the table for the police, but Officer Daniel's plan still had me reeling. Undercover? Me? It sounded insane, yet here I was, strapped with a mic and a heart hammering so loud I was sure it could be heard across the room. The office of Ava's so-called investment company was a high-end affair, sleek and buzzing with activity. Walking in, I felt every eye on me, though most were probably just curious or too wrapped up in their own business to care. I approached a counter where a lady with a rehearsed smile greeted me. Welcome. How can we help you invest your future with us today? I cleared my throat, trying to sound confident. I'm here to look into investment opportunities. I've heard good things, I lied, feeling the weight of the hidden mic against my skin. Oh, wonderful. Let me show you our portfolio. We've seen remarkable returns this year, she chirped, sliding over glossy brochures filled with graphs that probably meant nothing. Nodding along, I played my part, signing up for a callback and expressing interest in attending their charity dinner. I'm considering a significant investment. I'll be more prepared to discuss this at the dinner, I said, laying the groundwork for the sting. The night of the charity dinner arrived, and Ethan and I blended into the sea of suits and sequins. Ava was there, radiant, making her rounds with Mark, my ex-fiancé, at her side. Her pregnant belly stood out thanks to the tight dress. Midway through the evening, amidst applause and self-congratulatory speeches, Ava took to the stage. She was a master at this game, weaving tales of success and prosperity. Then, her eyes found me in the crowd. And here, we have a living testament to our fund's success. My sister, everyone. She's seen incredible returns on her investments with us. The room's attention shifted to me, a collective expectation hanging in the air. I took the stage, my legs somehow carrying me to face the crowd. Thank you, Ava. I began, my voice steady thanks to countless rehearsals in front of Ethan. But, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. I paused, letting the tension build. 5 years ago, I learned a hard lesson about trust and deceit, courtesy of my sister and her partner. Whispers rippled through the room as I continued. They're not the financial geniuses they claim to be. They're con artists, and this fund is their latest scam. The silence was deafening. Then, chaos erupted as police officers entered, moving through the crowd with purpose. Ava's shock quickly turned to fury. You little snake, how could you? She spat, making a break for it, only to fall spectacularly, the prosthetic belly revealing its true nature as it slid awkwardly to the side. The crowd gasped, the spell finally broken. As Ava and Mark were taken into custody, the room buzzed with the realization of the truth. Ethan wrapped an arm around me, whispering, "You did good, love. Really good." The dust finally settled after the sting operation, and the reality of Ava and Mark facing the music for their actions started to sink in. Ethan and I sat in our living room, the early morning light casting a soft glow over the chaos of the past few weeks. Ethan broke the silence, his voice a mix of exhaustion and relief. You know, I never doubted we'd pull through, but seeing it all go down was something else. I leaned against him, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. I know. It's like waking up from a bad dream, except it all actually happened. He kissed the top of my head, a gesture of comfort and solidarity. What matters is it's over. Ava and Mark will get what they deserve, and we can start to move on. The thought of moving on was daunting yet necessary. It's going to be strange, not having this looming over us. What do we do now? Ethan grinned, that mischievous twinkle in his eye I'd come to love. Well, for starters, we could take that vacation we've been talking about for ages. Get away from it all, just the two of us. I couldn't help but smile back. The idea of getting away, even for a little while, sounded like heaven. I think I'd like that. A lot. Our conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Officer Daniels, looking less like the stern policeman and more like a friend who'd been through the trenches with us. Got a minute? He asked, stepping inside. I thought you'd like to know, Ava and Mark's trial is set. With the evidence and your testimony, the DA's confident they'll be put away for a long time. The news brought a mix of emotions, but mainly a deep sense of closure. Thank you, Officer Daniels. For everything, I said, feeling a chapter of my life closing for good. He nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Just doing my job. You two take care of each other, all right? In the weeks that followed, Ava and Mark's trial came and went. They were convicted, their future now a stark contrast to the freedom they once took for granted. It was a bittersweet victory. Ava was still my sister, but the path she chose was hers alone. Ethan and I did take that vacation, finding solace in the quiet moments away from the world's noise. We talked about the future, about hope and healing, about building a life on the foundation of trust and love. The adventure we'd been through tested us in ways I never imagined, but it also showed me the strength we have together. Life's unpredictable, filled with challenges and unexpected turns, but facing them with Ethan by my side makes all the difference.